All right, we are ready to go. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna launch here so I can see all this. So there we are. Man,
Oh,
look at how lonely.
I was like, I thought that was the air conditioning. Oh my
That's
God.
like pretty lonely in here.
It's like Mike Myers movie. One's at the far end.
Yeah.
Alex, are you ready?
I am, yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So good morning, and let me turn my audio off. Sorry about that. Audio. That should do it. So good morning and welcome to the meeting of the City of Helena Audit Committee. For the purposes of roll, I'll just announce that I'm here and along with Commissioner Dean, and we had minutes from the last meeting, which I couldn't see any problem with, and I don't know if you had the opportunity to, but if there are no objections, we'll just approve those as written. And we will get into the regular items of this agenda, the first being the audit exit conference for fiscal year 2022 the 2022 audit. So Ms. Danielson, I'll turn it over to you, and I'm listening, and I'm going to shut the door.
Thank you, Commissioner Logan. Today, we have with us Tyler Bryant from our auditing firm, JCCS, and we have had the opportunity to finally finalize our fiscal year 2022 audit in May, and we're just now scheduling this final exit conference. And included in your packets are all of the audit letters that were issued by his firm. There also was one lead letter that was addressed to the audit committee from JCCS, just to express some of their comments on how the audit went, and then also their recommendation for any improvements that we might look to improve in the next fiscal year. And we have taken note of those, and we'll certainly incorporate those recommendations into our practices. At this point, I will turn it over. And so just as a summary, they audited our fiscal year 2022 financial statements, and they also performed a single federal audit, which is an audit of our federal expenditures that of all of our federal contracts, and we're required to file that with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. There were no findings in that particular audit, which were great to hear. And I have Tyler Bryant here to go over any other issues or comments about the audit. If you want to just take over.
Sure. Thanks, Sheila. Yeah, we're not going to go through the full CAF for the act for this time. That's the big package that just got presented to you. If you haven't looked through them yet, my biggest suggestion is always to read through the MD&A, management discussion analysis. It's about 10-15 pages. That really just is a narrative explaining big changes, increases, decreases for the year compared to prior years, and kind of where things are going. It's a lot easier to read than the other 200 plus pages that are each individual fund and whatnot. So what we're going to go over to start are the letters where our firm had our opinion or comments and suggestions and things like that. So it looks like you each have individual printouts there. So the first one we'll look at is titled Independent Auditor's Report. And I'll just do highlights on these. I'm not going to go over every paragraph per se, but it's a little bit different report format now. They've moved the opinion to the front instead of being on page 3. So the most important thing is the opinion, and all is good as far as the opinion goes. It's a clean audit opinion, no material misstatements are within the financials. Midway through there, just to know there was a change in accounting principle that was fairly substantial. That's the adoption of the lease standard. Basically, leases used to be fully on the income statement side, and now they're included on the balance sheet statement financial position. So it was a big undertaking, and now it's part of the financials going forward.
And if I may ask the purpose of that, the change?
That's a great question. So it came,
It's better he answer.
yeah, it's really derived from public companies that were having issues doing off balance sheet accounting, basically. So they would have all of these massive leases that they technically didn't have to show on their financials. And then when they went bad, that's when they would show up on the financials. So it's actually been 6 or 7 years since they kind of put that in place. So like the Microsofts, the Googles, you know, they had to do it. And then GASB, who's overseeing governmental accounting, they thought it was a great idea too. So basically they took it on, did some tweaking and put it in place. So if you have a 10-year lease, technically that's going to go on the balance sheet showing your right to use that lease or your requirement to pay for it.
Can I ask a general question? How many leases do we have?
So I believe we had 5.
5 that were
Mhm.
more than a 12-month period lease.
Right. The most significant ones were the land lease with the archery club, the certificate of participation lease with the state fund for the 15th Street parking garage. The other 3 were copier leases, so fairly immaterial.
Yeah.
Although they met the threshold that we identified as a policy to report them.
Yeah. So essentially any lease that extends beyond 12 months has to be at least identified and looked at to see if it needs to be included going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The other important paragraphs here, the responsibilities of management for the financials, basically just management, which is, you know, basically the whole city of Helena is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financials. We as the auditors, we're responsible for our forming our opinion and the work that we do on the audit itself. Next couple pages, it's kind of referring to just a couple other reports and whatnot. We don't need to go over those per se. Nothing negative, nothing outstanding in any of those paragraphs. So that's the auditor's opinion report in a nutshell. It's on about page 7 of the ACFR. Then we have referring to the single audit or the federal funding. There's 2 reports and they're very long headlines. Independent auditors report on internal control over financial reporting and non-compliance, the first one. And basically that's what it is. It's there's no opinion on internal control in this report, but it's stating that we did enough testing, if you will, to verify that there's going to be controls over how federal funds are spent. So we did not have any findings related to that. There's explanations in here on what a finding could be, significant deficiency or material weakness, but we did not know either of those, which is good. And 2 pages later, it's a secondary report. This one's specific to reporting on compliance for each major program. Major programs are the ones within all the federal expenditures that we deem are the ones required to be tested at a different level. And so those have basically a different threshold and different level of testing that was performed. And we do provide an opinion on those, that the compliance requirements for those major programs, there were no findings, no issues related to those.
I just might add that the 2 major programs that they identified were the ARPA money that we spent, and I believe it was one from the Department of Agriculture, if I'm not mistaken.
Schools and roads.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah, the schools and roads were the 2 major programs that they identified. And so when they identify major programs, they'll spend more time reviewing all the documentation related to meeting the grant requirements for those grants.
Yeah. And on page 189 of the ACFR, I don't know, did you include this page?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually in the ACFR. I'm sorry if it's not in the in your packet, but it is very close to the very end of the book there that they indicate what the.
It's basically just
They're
a
at 193.
table kind of summarizing the schedule findings and questions cost. Pretty much everything in here just says no, 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 or unmodified, meaning to bring up findings or bring up issues identified. So it's kind of recapturing the previous 2 pages from in the narrative form down to a table form. It does list the 2 major programs identified that we tested. And so, yeah, this is a good summary of that whole process. The last letter would be the one Sheila referred to earlier, the required communications letter. It's just kind of captures all sorts of things, all the things that we're required to talk about. So if you have that, significant audit matters is that first major bullet point. Mentioned the new standards were put in place. Number 87 referring to leases that we talked about was a major one, so that's listed in there. The other ones are listed in that paragraph, either didn't have an impact or were essentially immaterial, but were chemical regardless. We did mention, just again, because of the dates, so difficulties encountered in performing the audit, just significant delays in obtaining finalized year-end financial data. So as a result of that, we're just quite a bit past our expected completion timeline. No issues with corrected or incorrect statements on page 2. No disagreements with management. Other matters are referring to some other governmental requirements that aren't nothing major in here. We did have those 2 findings that we noted in here, basically room for improvement in controls. So first one is referring to the capital asset acquisitions, and really it just needed to be cleaned up with some of the documentation and approvals, and so that we could follow that process through each and every time without having to go track it down. So it was written in the right way, just wasn't always followed. And then the second one was taxes and assessments revenues, and just had some issues with the calculations or the worksheets or how to get to the final number, if you will. So there were errors that were discovered and corrected during the audit procedures. And so just another thing that needs a little different level of review, different level of preparation with that specific set of accounts. And the rest is just kind of almost jargon that we've already talked about before, so nothing else really mentioned in there. And then we did have one other deliverable. I didn't print it out, you might not have either, but referring to the building permits. So the state requires a specific set of testing on the building permits fund. And so we did that again. And it's basically a whole list of things that the state wants you to look at. There's about 14, 15 items. The only issue we noted on that was that the fiscal report was not sent to the state. And basically it's just once everything's completed, you send the report to them and they have it on their file.
And I have a question about that. I thought we submitted that.
That's Sarah, we've done that once.
Because it was noted on the prior year, and then we made sure that she uploaded that. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure why they didn't receive it. We had our accountant perform that. So
we couldn't get a copy of it for
okay,
whatever reason. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's to the Department of Labor, right? You just upload it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that that gets taken care of. Yeah.
Send it twice.
Yeah. I just remember having that conversation and asking to follow
So-
through on it.
That submission is the responsibility of finance.
Yes.
It's just taking this after report and uploading a copy.
Well, it's the building report too.
Yeah, too.
Yeah. To the Department.
But I
of Labor.
thought the fiscal report that you're talking about is the after? And
No, it's
She
separate
didn't
from
do
that.
the other
It's
one.
separate from that. The building report
Yeah.
itself is
All
just
those
the building
schedules.
fund,
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
basically revenues,
Yeah.
expenses in the fund balances, so they can recalc the 0.5%.
yeah.
and all
Huh,
that.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well. make
And maybe
sure
it
that
was
that's
done,
on
we just couldn't get a copy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll move forward with that because I remember
Yeah.
having that conversation with her, and she said she completed it, so I'm not sure. I can't follow up with her now because she's no longer. But we will, if not, if it wasn't, we'll definitely
Do
get it.
both of them there.
So apologize for that.
And really that is it as far as deliverables go. So open it up to any questions, any comments.
I don't think I have any. Surprisingly.
No findings. What does an organization such as us do had there been findings? I mean, just out of
Yeah.
curiosity briefly, what would the process then be?
So findings is a general term. A finding can be as low as we're going to have a communication about this particular account or this reconciliation or something like that. And it doesn't even get to any physical form. It's more just documented oral communication. It can go all the way up to if it's what's considered a material weakness, which is basically a big adjustment or a big issue in federal funding. And if that were the case, then it would go in one of those earlier reports we looked at. And basically it has to then come with what's called a CAP corrective action report. And that would be a response from the city saying, here's the issue, here's the cause, we identified it, how we're going to fix it. And then that has to go to the state and they have to approve the plan.
I see.
That's about as far as it can go if it's the worst possible thing. And then in between there just depends on the magnitude of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item relative to the audit exit conference?
I have no public comment online.
And seeing none in the room, I guess we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a motion to approve recommendation to accept the FY22 audited financial statement and bring to full commission at the June 26th, 2023 commission meeting. So prior to getting to that motion, I might ask, so what will the presentation look like to the commission? Be a regular item? What's your
Thank you.
vision there?
Thank you, Commissioner Logan. Yeah, and I'll put it into the agenda as a regular item. Mr. Bryant won't be there at the meeting, but I will, reiterate the highlights of the audit. You will actually, I'll turn it over to you then, if, after I present the audit letters and the financial statements, and then I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Logan, as the chair of the committee to have, make a motion to have the entire commission accept the audit financial statements.
Okay.
And so that's how that will look like. I do want to make one other comment that I do appreciate all of the work that JCCS has done for us the last 3 years. I know it's been difficult at times for them to schedule their time around our staffing vacancies, our ability to perform required tasks, and they have been more than patient with us. And I really appreciate him and his staff's time, and I wanted to just recognize that
Thank you.
publicly. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with Tyler and his
Yeah.
firm.
Yeah, and likewise, and obviously there's circumstances in the whole world outside of everybody's control that makes this less efficient and less.
Yeah. I think we're on a trajectory to correct that issue.
Yeah.
And we're hoping we won't have the delays like we have in the past.
Well, thanks for that recognition.
So are we back on track now again with I know our budget process is now back on track, but with audits, we're back on track too.
Yes.
If she'll stay.
I can't predict that someone will leave the organization, but I do know I will be very disappointed.
Well, that has clearly been a big challenge and for a number of years. So
Our first.
we
audit.
appreciate getting to where we are today. So thank you all. I do have one other question prior to entertaining a motion, and that is, so this will go to a regular commission meeting. This will be published in the packet. Will that be the first place that the public will be able to see this?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm not going to publish it to our website until the commission has accepted it.
so will some of these materials that we've seen be in that packet as well?
They're all in part of that packet, with the exception of the audit letter, and I will leave the packet with that letter as well, with the required communications to them.
Tyler, your recommendation to the public might be similar to what you mentioned to us about the pages to
What
read,
to look
that
at.
you called it the MD&A.
Yeah.
That might be the most beneficial
For sure.
part of the document for the public to have a look at.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you get into the other pages, it's do you want to spend 5-6 hours really
Right.
Are
understanding
you
it?
an accountant?
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably have to require a significant financial background, I suppose.
Yeah. The notes are a little bit easier to read. So once you get past some of the tables and all the funds, there's about a 60-70 page range of notes. And that's just narratives and some tables that explain where some of those numbers come from and what they mean. That'd be the second place I would read if I was general public, but for sure, start there.
Might be something just food for thought,
Yep.
worth noting as the agenda, or as you get things into Novus and all that, just a thought. So anything else? I would certainly entertain a motion, which I guess I will second.
I will move
Hopefully.
to approve the recommendation to accept the FY22 audited financial statements and to bring to the full commission at the June 26, 2023 commission meeting.
I'll second that. We have a motion that has been readily moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 2-0. So next item on the agenda, actually, I better see if there's any public comment.
I have no public comment online.
Next item on the agenda, member communications. Anybody have anything to offer?
I might want to say one item is that during that same commission meeting, we'll ask that the chair also bring forward the information that was recommended during our last audit committee, is to accept the proposal from the new audit firm, Mayor Dussel, to move forward with our audit. And we don't have a finalized agreement with them yet. I'm getting that hashed out. They're a little bit unfamiliar with some of the required state documents. And so we're kind of going back and forth with that, but we should have a finalized agreement with them for that meeting.
Is that a multi-year agreement?
Yes, it's a 3-year.
Well, we're one of the few that have gotten scheduled because school districts are struggling
Yeah.
to right
And
now.
so I don't know if we told you yet, Tyler, that Mayor Dussel is the successful bidder on
Okay.
our RFP. And so they'll likely be
They should
reaching
be.
out to you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Hopefully they do.
I'm sure they will. They
Yeah.
indicated that they would be. So what they do is they communicate with prior audit firms to get work papers and information.
So would you and I need to maybe get together before that meeting, and just in terms of how all of that gets presented, or
We certainly can. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
if I need to make any introduction or anything like
Okay.
that, or
All right.
not?
That sounds good. Maybe you and I and the city manager.
Sure,
can just
yep,
have a
yep.
quick meeting.
Right.
Perfect.
Don't want to leave him out.
I'll talk to Stephanie to schedule that meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you. Anything else?
Nothing further from me. I do also appreciate working with you all. Yeah, we'll see where we are in 3 years. Maybe
Yes.
things are a little bit better on our side and your side as well, and then we'll see where we're at.
I have noted that to the full commission and is that it's unprecedented, the accounting crisis I think we're in, with
Yeah.
nationwide lack of accountants. And we had just received our responses to our GFOA submission right after we submitted our final
Yeah,
draft to them, and then had to scramble to incorporate all of those comments and get that adjusted before we issued another draft to them as well. So
Yeah.
they're having difficulty getting people to volunteer to review those reports as well. So it's interesting times.
yeah.
So is there any comment from the public relative to the audit committee that is not on this agenda?
I do not see any public comment online.
Okay. Anything further for anyone to offer before I adjourn? Okay, I adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tyler. Commissioners, I can